keep your finger there, and let me just go over just a couple of Q&As really quick. Common question is, if I marry the right person, then the emotions will automatically be there, and they'll be there effortlessly. The answer is absolutely no. It doesn't matter if you marry the exact right person according to your soul type, your personality. I'll tell you something. I think it's kind of weird, but especially for guys, they think it's almost like if I have to work my marriage, something's wrong with that. No. You have to work on your marriage, and this is for everybody. Everybody has to work on your marriage, whether that is your soul type or not your soul type, your personality type. It doesn't matter. You have to work on your marriage. You have to. And so once again, if I marry the right person, then the emotions will automatically be there. The attraction will never go away, and it'll be effortlessly. No, absolutely false. You're going to have to work on marriage. And this is the reason why I said this last week. Marriage is every day. It's every day. It's every day. I think guys tend to look at marriage as a point system. If I give her the shoes, then I'm good for a week. We're fine. Then I'm okay. No, that's actually false. And this is the reason why I say is that all points all points go away at the end of the night. At 12 midnight, that's it. All points go away. So then the next day, what am I doing? I'm also working on my marriage. It is a constant pursuit. It's something that I'm consistently working on. Here's the other question. If my emotions change towards my spouse, I must have married the wrong person. I married the wrong person. I don't know how many couples that I've talked to where they come to that revelation. And they'll tell me, look, personally, just between me and you, Pastor, I think I married the wrong person. Because you know what? What I was feeling before was it's just not there anymore. It's not there. The fire's gone. I don't feel anything towards her anymore. I don't feel anything towards him anymore. It's not there. Once again, if my emotions change towards my spouse, I must have married the wrong person. Here's the answer. Your emotions are going to change, period. And even if you do work at it, you're not always going to be there as far as emotionally. Sometimes your emotions are... Look, here's the thing. I can't predict my emotions. I can't. I wish I could predict my emotions, but I can't predict my emotions. But here's one thing, and here's what speaks very loud to your spouse in marriage, is saying, look, I can't predict my emotions, but here's one thing that I can predict. It's my will, and it's my choice. And I choose to go ahead and love you. It doesn't matter. That speaks loudly. Amen?
Amen.
So let's go ahead and go back to Genesis chapter 2. In Genesis chapter 2, and I was really thinking about this. I mean, right before this, God went ahead and created the heavens. He made the earth. He made the Bible says He made all the animals, the creepy things. And then He makes everything. And then He looks, everything that He made, He looks back at it and says, and He stamped it with this: it is good. Ah, it is good. Ah, it is good. The word good means a sense of, oh, it's functioning, it's working, it's good. If I break down, if my car breaks down on the side of the road, and I go ahead and pop the hood, and I start working on it, and then I turn the key back on, and I put the key in the ignition and turn it, and it comes back on, and I'm good, that's good, right? Why is it good? Because it's functioning, it's working. And so everything that God created, it was good because it was functioning. So here God goes ahead and takes a sliver out of time and goes ahead and talks about marriage. Now here's one thing that could have happened. God could have went ahead and says, you know what? Okay, Adam, Eve, go ahead, go. You guys are good. And that would have been great. But God went ahead and took a moment and said, this is what I think about marriage, and this is what marriage should be. And boom, He establishes it. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2. Look at verse, let's go to verse 21. It says, so the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. And then he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh at that place. Verse 22. And the Lord God fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from the man and brought her to the man. Now, I heard one pastor say, you know, here's one thing that God didn't do. God didn't go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to take his toe, and from his toe, I'm going to go ahead and fashion a woman. Or I'm going to go ahead and fashion from his ear a woman. You know, symbolically, you know, stemming from this, that I'm not going to go ahead and create something, you know, that's going to come from the bottom. You know, where he's going to always constantly dominate over her. Or I'm not going to take something, you know, from his ear or from his nose where she's going to dominate him. I want you to see this for just a moment. That he took a rib from his side and said, basically, this is going to be, in a sense, equal to you. In other words, I cannot look at my wife, nor anybody should. You should not look at your spouse and say, I dominate my spouse. Now, wait a second. There has to be a sense of consideration to that spouse. So here God says, you know what? I'm going to take that rib, that middle point, and I'm going to go ahead and take that rib, and I'm going to go ahead and make something that never existed before, and I'm going to create a woman. And the woman was supposed to be a fashion statement to that man. In other words, this woman goes ahead and makes him look good. The woman should have said, amen. Amen. That was good. You missed it. I'm not going back. I want you to see what verse 23 says. This is what Adam does. Adam goes ahead and looks at this woman. This is the first thing. Now imagine he looked at a gorilla. He looked at a dog. He looked at a cat. He looked at all of creation. He looked at everything. But this is the one thing that he goes and says, wow. This is what he says. This is Adam. He says, this is bone of my bones. He says, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman. Now I want you to see this. Is that he looks at her and says, baby, we are one. We're not separate, we're together. In other words, we connect. I think it's so important that even within, you know, in the beginning of any relationship, there's a beginning point of any relationship where there's a connection. Look, think about it. You connected emotionally. You connected, you know, in an intellectual sense. You connected. Then you connected physically. Look, there's that connection. Wow, we connect. Whoa, you are bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Look, we're there. Look at verse 24. God is speaking, and I talked about this before. I'm going to tell you about 4 laws. If you're taking notes, if you want to go ahead and get the CD, our CDs are free. So here's the law. I'm going to talk about 4 important laws. I was only able to get through a couple last week. The law of priority, number 1. The law of pursuit, number 2. The law of purity, number 3. And number 4, the law of possession. First law. I want you to see what God says in regards to marriage. He says, verse 24, for this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother, and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Verse 25, and the man and his wife were both naked, and they were not ashamed. The law of priority is, for this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother. The priority is, hey, your spouse becomes a priority. Your spouse is the most important person on the face of this planet, period. It's the law of priority. Most of the time, do you know that it's not the gambling problems, it's not the alcoholic problems, it's really not those problems that tear a marriage apart. It's actually a lot of the good things that actually come into the marriage and begin to go ahead and drown out the marriage where, you know what, I'm getting this promotion, it's going to take more time. I'm going to go ahead and do this now with the guys. We're taking more time. Oh, what about this child? This child has to do this and this. What about this kid? You know what? They have soccer practice. They have baseball practice. They have this type of practice. They have all of this. And then it's all of the good things that begin to go ahead and bring a sense of separation. When we have to come back to this law, and I call it the fundamental law of priority. You're number one. Period. You know, in some cultures, they really honor the mother and they really honor the father. But sometimes in those cultures, what happens is that they get married and then they go back to mama. No, wait a second. Nuh-uh. You know, if you were there, or for some of you were there for Jamie and Henry's wedding. And one of the things that I tell when I do my marriage vows and I'm conducting a marriage ceremony, I say that, hey, if Jamie went ahead and has an argument, it's not her thing to go back to her mom's house all the time. It's her thing to work it out, go home. What did I say? I said, what happens when Henry wants to go back to Dad and say, Dad, that's it, I'm done. I don't know about this marriage. You know what? I thought we loved each other. And I instructed the congregation. I said, here's one thing that you're going to be, you can tell Henry and Jamie, and here it is. Tell them to go home. It's a law of priority. I need to put her number one. I don't feel it. I just don't feel it. My emotions are not there. I don't feel it anymore. I'm tired. I get that a lot. I'm just tired. I've been there plenty of times. I'm tired. I'm so tired that it takes a lot out of me just to even have a conversation. And for guys, look, this is tough for us. This is just like, it's like climbing Mount Everest. It's like, how do I process all of that information? Oh my goodness, but I'm gonna tell you something. That is the work of marriage. High work ethic, high goals create a great marriage. Great marriage. I've seen high goals, low work ethic. It's a disaster for marriage. And here's the law. Here's what God is talking about in the very beginning. He says, for this cause a man shall leave. You got to leave his father and his mother. In other words, I know what's priority now, and my priority is my spouse. Amen? Amen. So, here's the second law. It's called the law of pursuit. Look what God says. He says, shall cleave. The word cleave. The word cleave actually, you know what it actually means? It actually means, it's defined as the word of energy. That's what it actually means. It means energy. There's energy here. In other words, I'm going to tell you something. It takes work in your marriage. And it's going to always take work in your marriage. Cleave. You know, there's two types of romance. And I like what Dr. Gary Chapman talks about. He says in the first 2 years of our marriage, he says, I was in love with her. And it was the first type of romance. And I just, emotionally we connected, intellectually we connected, physically we were there. And he says, I loved her, and it was great, and it was going back, back and forth. And he says, as soon as the honeymoon stage, and mind you, the honeymoon stage is actually a scientific study, and the honeymoon stage actually lasts for about 2 to 3 years. For some, it lasts maybe 6 months. For some, it lasts a little longer. But that is really the first stage of romance. The second stage of romance is the romance that you actually have to work at it. Because in those first 2-3 years, guess what? Things are brand new. We're exploring. Wow, I never knew that. Wow, okay, great. But guess what happens? After you've had all the sex, you've done every position, you've connected, it's like, whoa, okay, well, well, what is there more to explore? It's like, well, okay, well, I guess we got to talk, right? We got to have a conversation. So, what's your favorite color? Right? So here's the second part of marriage, and it's called the romance that you do on purpose. I do this on purpose. I connect with my spouse, and we do it on purpose. Remember, the first part was easy. Because everything was brand new. And look what God says. He says, you shall cleave. In other words, you're going to have to put some energy into this. Once again, some marriages, they think something's wrong if you have to actually work at your marriage. Because the thought is, well, I thought automatically I would just, feel that, be there automatically. And in the first, year, 2 years, you talk about, oh yeah, we're going to be here, and we're going to love each other. You know what? I see us in 15 years. We'll be unbreakable. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. But guess what? The reality of cleaving, the reality of putting that energy in. From my personal experience, before I met Jeanette, the longest relationship that I would have was on average maybe 3 months, 6 months. And it was because I would go through that first stage of romanticism, and I would hit that stage, and then guess what? I would wake up one morning and be like, I don't feel it no more, so I guess I'm not in love. Go to the next one. And for guys especially, not to say it doesn't happen with women, but for guys especially, guys go through that. And I remember I had to be honest. And I went ahead and I had a conversation with my dad. And my dad said, and I talked to my dad, I told him, this is what I'm going through, this is what I feel. And then he said, oh, that's normal. And I'm like, what? He said, oh yeah, that's normal stuff, man. Here's what he told me. He says, every marriage goes through that. Every marriage goes to that place of, you know what, the feeling is just not there anymore. And I'll tell you something, I don't care who you are. I think what happens is that sometimes, if you're learning to use a gun, they will tell you, you know what, this is the way you hold it, this is the way you do it. Look, it's no toy, because you will hurt yourself. If you're even if you're learning to run, if you're learning to go to the gym and work out, if you get a personal trainer, they'll tell you, this is how you lift the weight. You don't do it like this, you do it like this. And what's the reason why? Is because you're going to get hurt. Doesn't matter who you are. Listen to me. Doesn't matter who you are. You're going to get hurt if you don't do it right. In the very same reason why, in marriage, if you don't do this right, you're going to get hurt. The first stage of romance is, man, it feels good, it feels great. That's the honeymoon stage. And then guess what? The honeymoon stage is over, and then there comes the word. And look what God says. He says, you shall, what? Cleave. The word cleave means energy. It means you've got to put some work into this. You've got to put some energy into this. Marriage is a daily work. Daily, I'm working at this. Daily. Here's the third one. The third one is the law of purity. The law of purity symbolizes, well, let me read the scripture. It says, and they were both naked. And I like this. And they were not ashamed. There was no shame. In other words, I'm not hiding anything. I don't got to hide anything in this marriage. Look, I'm going to tell you something. Guys, listen to me. In order for your marriage to be strong, you've got to be honest with your spouse. There's been times in my marriage where I've connected with, I've told Jeanette, I don't feel like I'm connecting, we're not connecting physically. I'm not connecting with you. I need more of this. This is what I need. What would happen if I do this? I'll just keep it to myself. Nah, she wouldn't understand. Forget it. I'm going to tell you something. once again, I'm hiding something. And I'll tell you something, the thing that you hide, it'll grow and it'll breed. It'll grow into something that you don't want it to grow into. Because that thing has to be fed. One of the reasons why you even got married is because you looked at that spouse, you looked at that person, you said, that's the person that can meet my needs. So that's where that open conversation has to happen, in that sense of purity. Look at, they looked at each other. There was no hidden agenda. They looked at each other and they were pure. And they weren't ashamed. You know, sometimes what happens in marriage is sometimes maybe we bring something into the marriage. Maybe it's some baggage. Maybe some things that we haven't talked about. And here's the thing. You have to be able to talk to your spouse and be open with your spouse. There has to be a sense of open communication. And I know it's tough, especially for men. It's very tough to be open and to communicate. Very tough. But I'll tell you something. Get over it. Listen to me. Get over it. I'm kindly, in a very loving way, I'm saying you have to get over it and you have to begin to talk. It was really tough for me in the beginning of my marriage to talk. Because I was 30-something years old. I got married in my 30s. Who do I need to talk to? I didn't need to talk to anybody. So it wasn't a ready habit within me. And there's that thing where you have to be open. You have to talk. And this is just a law that I see that this is just it. Here's the other thing that in regards to this law, the law of purity, is whatever I have is mine, whatever is mine is yours. And baby, if you want to look at my cell phone, you want to look at my emails, whatever you want to look at, it's open at any time and you can look at it. Because, listen to me, in the law of purity, I'm really not hiding anything. I'm not hiding nothing. What do I got to hide? Think about it. You know, there's that saying, oh, whatever she don't know won't hurt her. No, it might not hurt her, but it's hurting you. Listen to me, it's hurting you. And here's the beautiful part in regards to this law. Here's what keeps this law grounded and founded, is when a man can say, you know what, Lord, I'm going to be open to you, Lord God. An open heart to God. And then what happens that when you find that woman who's open to God, look at, you have two people that are open to God who can go ahead, where God can go ahead and deal with them and work with them. And guess what happens? Then they both begin to grow. Communicating, from my personal point of view, was very tough. And I'm going to tell you, still to this day, it's tough. But I got that thing in my head where I said, get over it and just talk. I get frustrated, to be honest with you. I get frustrated. My voice begins to go ahead and get louder. Didn't you hear me? I just said that. And this is where, listen to me, you have to communicate at a good level. One of the things that Jeanette would, and we'll talk more about this, in the marriage seminar. She would come at me at a number 10. Boom, from 1 to 10. If she was unpleased with something, she would come at me at a 10. And then I'm like, guess what? Then I'm going to come at you at a 10. You come at me at a 10, I'm going to hit you back at a 10. And it would just go boom, 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 boom. Every F-bomb, boom, boom, dropping bomb, 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 bomb. And then in the process of all of that, guess what's happening? You hurt the individual. You're hurting, you're hurting, you're hurting, you're hurting, you're hurting, you're hurting. Here's what I've also said about words. Words are very important. You can tear down with your words, or you can build up with your words. And the law of purity says there's nothing to hide. And as long as there's nothing to hide, then you can be pure with each other. Be honest with each other. You know what my wife told me some time ago? I just don't feel it, David. I don't feel it. I don't feel that thing that we had. I don't feel it anymore. You know what my reaction was? I could have came at her and say, What are you you talking about? You crazy woman, look at the things that I do. And no, I didn't. Baby, it's okay, I understand. Because I've gone through that too. This is how we get out of that. Amen? Amen. Law of purity. I need to be pure. I need to be honest. I need to be open. A healthy marriage requires a sense of intimacy without fear. And when my spouse wants to go ahead and open up about something, listen to me, I can't punish them. You can't punish that individual. They're just being open. And have a good time. Have a good time as far as having open conversation where you're completely exposed to each other physically, mentally, and emotionally. I want you to see that last word. That last word was, and they were unashamed. Now, there's no shame here. I can be open. If there's any person on the face of this planet that I can be open with, I can be open with my spouse. Shouldn't you? Look at me. Shouldn't you?
Amen.
Shouldn't you be open with your spouse?
Yes.
You have to be open with your spouse. It's the law of purity. There's no hidden agenda. There's only one agenda. It's God and it's us. That's it. I want you to see the other law. There's one more law. And then I'll continue on. It says, and the two shall become one flesh. They're one. They're not separate. They're one. I call this the law of possession. I own her. I do. I own her. She owns me. In Exodus, there's a great scripture in the book of Exodus where God is speaking. He's talking to his people, and this is what he says. He says, my name. He says this. My name is jealous. God says that. He says, my name is jealous. He says, you're worshiping other idols. He says, but I want you to know that I am jealous over you. Now, there's a good, healthy sense of jealousy. Not an unhealthy jealousy, but I'm talking about a good, healthy jealousy where, you know what? No, I crave you. I'm needing more of you. I need some more of you. Let's take some time. Let's do this. Let's take a walk. Why don't we go ahead and take a trip? It's just an overnight. Let's go ahead and do that. The law of possession. I own you and you own me. We own this. Here's the other thing in regards to that. You share everything. You share everything. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. Go to the Song of Solomon. Go to Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 16. I want you to see this, and we're going to get into this a lot more, even talking about going into this book, because this is really good. This is a good book. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 16. It says, my beloved is mine, and I am his. I want you to see that. He says, I'm his. My beloved is mine, and I am his. Her body is mine, and my body is hers. In other words, the opposite of this would be, in a sense, to be selfish or to be dominant. Where you have one side, where one spouse says, I'm dominant of everything. You can't have that. One spouse says, I get the last word. Doesn't matter. One spouse says, you know what? I don't know what you're doing. You're stupid. You're dumb. Let me do this. No, wait a second. Wait, you share in everything. I'm not going to be that way. Sometimes one spouse will make all the decisions and controls everything. Now, like for example, in my household, with my family, my wife does the bookkeeping. But anytime I want to go ahead and ask her about the books, baby, what's going on with how much money are we spending on groceries this month? What's going on when it comes to paying down that credit card that we used last month? You know, what in regard to any financial thing, I'm gonna tell you something. She could take one approach and be dominant and control and say, it's none of your business. I got it. Don't worry about it. Or she could be this. Yeah, what is it? Whatever you need. Let me show you what the books are. Let me show you how much we spent. Once again, listen, we share everything. We can't dominate. Because if you do that, then you're just going to breed selfishness. And it is an absolute recipe for disaster. Is this helping somebody? I want you to go over to